like, when you go to.
The scientific study. I think that also it would be interesting
Yeah.
to get someone, I don't know if it would be the DEP, but if someone could look at it from a safety point of view. That's not scientific, that's boats on water, where they go, what they do, and is there some source of information, an authority, and I don't know if DEP would have anything like that, but if they could look at our lake and look at the boat traffic, and preferably on a busy day, because these guys are lying low, and maybe see how it works to appreciate the danger aspect, which I think this public safety has been our main, it's our first concern. And does the DEP share that concern?
That's a good question, Linda. I will pass that along to Jim to ask him about that as well. Who makes those determinations? I know Dean's made that determination for himself, but I don't know. I don't know who officially would say that. So I'll ask Jim to look into that too. So that's where we stand on wave boating. How's that? Is that the better way to say it? Wave boating from now on?
You got it.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, because I was looking at some maps and I saw the literature that the Lake Warma Association put out their Lake It Easy, I think, campaign, their new campaign. Do you know how wide the Lake Warma is? I just did a quick search and wasn't able to figure out. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me. I mean, Carol and I went around and we did depth, and I have done with an old map the width, and it's there are some areas are wider than others in the main section. And then the section up north of the town beach that's pretty wide too. But what's different about that section is that, there are, it's steep drop off on the edges.
Yeah,
and that's
you can find the depth maps really easily, and it's fascinating.
But see, they're claiming, the task force is claiming that the bathymetric maps aren't accurate and they have to do a whole new survey. Fine, but there are a lot of the issue is, if you look at the main part of the lake here in the middle, you have three areas down at Cherry Point, with the death-defying turn. That's a little promontory, and that sticks out, and opposite is another one that sticks out. That's a narrow section. If you had 500 feet on each side of a boat, two boats couldn't pass there because there isn't enough room. That same measurement applies to off of Sega Point, Randall Point, the point where the inn used to be, and across from that the land comes out, and that is another narrow, I call them the waist, is your waistline there, and that again wouldn't have enough space for two boats, because one might have two boats going in different directions for the distance you need from the shore. And then there's a third point down at the end of Arrow Point, and across the way where the Thorns house, again, it's a little promontory, comes out, and that's a very narrow one. And these are narrow, they also are shallow.
That's the
Well, I think Linda, that's hopefully what we'll get back from the task force shortly, but
yeah, I'm hoping they see that
now. And it'll come up at our next selectmen meeting, because we keep bringing it up, so hopefully it's not going to die.
Good.
So keep moving
I
forward.
appreciate
I
it.
looked at the map that the Lake Warma Association put out, and it just didn't look like 200 feet, the part that they had shaded.
That little one.
But I'm like, I don't know. So I tried to figure out how online, and short of, even the Google Earth, none of the maps have a scale that I could figure out. Okay, well, that's a half mile, and that's how many feet.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. And then
I have an old geodetic survey map,
She just did.
and so I did it that way.
yeah.
All right,
Because then I think those pinch points you're talking about, Linda, would be very clear.
yeah.
You know, if you need to have
Well, you,
500 feet
If
on
you
either
decide-
side.
you're fine, then what are you gonna
Decide
do,
what
just
the-
stop and turn around? I mean, I,
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's if we determine the lake has an ability, whether it's depth or width, to accommodate the boats. You gotta be able to know what the width is. First we have to decide, are we doing 200 or are we doing 500 or something in
Right,
between?
well, only
And
the
then-
boating industry says 200
I
feet.
understand, but we go with what's, so that's where we have to decide, and then does the lake accommodate that? What's the depth you need? I know we've had that, you've got some research on that as well, so. That's where we are right now, I don't wanna
okay,
just,
Yeah, let's move on.
we're not gonna solve it here, and we
Right.
know where we're going.
okay.
So, on low impact sustainable or sustainable, low impact development, however you wanna put it. We, as an update, the committee had put together a committee that we have going, put together an RFP. Proposals were due June 30th. We got two proposals, one from a combination of Planometrics and Fuss and O'Neill, and one from a group called Trinkus Engineering out of Southbury.
So what is that for?
This is to take develop a low impact development plan and incorporate it into our, as a part of our zoning regulations. Within the budget that we budgeted for, so that's a good thing. I'm not a person to review these not, it's out of my, but they both had, the things I wanted to be sure was they had a cost in here, they had a timeline in here, they had phases in here of how long each thing should take, so that will help us in terms of decide, for me anyway, it helps know that we're gonna do whichever one we're gonna do, we have a clear timeline of what it takes, when things should be done, and the timeline for it, so that's a good thing.
And
So-
Trinkus Engineering is a firm, I mean, Steve is a guy he has been
I know that.
devoted to
Yeah.
this for 30 years. He was a one-man, man, just going all over the state, all over the world. And he actually developed the manual for Morris along with the Conservation District.
Someone that did
and-
that,
and
okay.
COG.
All right.
So
Didn't we get that manual yet?
So, my assumption is Jim will, have a meeting of that committee, we'll review the RFPs and we'll be able, hopefully approve one and get the project going, so.
So refresh my memory, Jay. Were we asking them to come up with a manual like the Morris manual? And then also just figure out how it would integrate in with the regulations?
Right, the idea was not only integrate it in, but to go through our regulations and make sure that we're not looking to make this a part, integrated with the regulations, it's gonna be an add-on, if you will, but to make sure that there's nothing that conflicts with what the regulations are and what the manual is. So to me, that's probably, because the manual is fairly exists, I think, or is fairly,
It's 264 page.
right, so that's there, it's taking that manual that has been developed, adapting it to Washington, and then making sure that our zoning regs don't conflict with this manual, so,
That's great.
That's great.
so,
That's a great.
just as a,
How many years? How many years? 1 year?
I was just looking to see if I could say right away, this one has it in days. It'll take 45 days to do this, 50, so I can't add up all the days, but, anyway. It'll be done this year, in this year's budget, and it looks like, that we have the funding to do that, so that will be moving along. So the other thing I wanted to do today is, talk about, the potential items of what action items that we might want to move forward with. I had sent you folks, an email with a list of the ones that we had talked about.
Yep.
Did anybody else bring that? If
I
not,
did, I brought it,
I did make a copy.
I could share.
Well, Michelle, you can share with me if you'd like. So my thought was, some of this stuff is to go through the list. See if people think it's, worth the effort to do what, it would be great to do all of them, but. We're this group. Obviously, the goal for all of this stuff is to put stuff in place that lasts.
Yeah.
That goes on, so. and what I would hope is that if we decide that we're gonna do 3, 4, whatever, that people will be interested in taking a leadership role in moving those forward with the group, and whoever else in town needs to be a part.
You don't want to do it all yourself?
I do not want to do it all myself. So thank you for that. But so I'll just go through the list and then we can go back and for those who maybe don't have it or
It's very
if you don't
confusing.
have it. So the first one was town composting, which was develop a composting system at the transfer station. Right now, as you know,
That happens.
we are collecting food waste. People are using it a lot. So we're pleased at how much it's happening. We are gonna collect data on that. But the next step in my mind is to develop right now it's then we pay for somebody to pick it up and take it over to your Milford and then to turn it into compost. The idea and other towns are doing this already in the state is to develop them up there where we just, that we do it ourselves. So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
put food waste, you put it there, you turn it over, you do whatever, you have to water it, whatever else you have to do.
Sell the dirt.
And then it's available for the town to use on town properties and for people to come and get whatever, depending on how much we make, to do that. So that's one thing. We had last year or so, I tried to get some funding to do some EV charging stations in town. The idea of that, by the way, is not for local residents to use, but to attract visitors along with it. So it's more a part of economic development to me than the idea of making them available for folks in town. So that's,
It's also handy for when somebody visits,
Yeah.
like their guests. and
Sure.
Their business doesn't have one.
sure, and that would,
So, yeah.
Question, are those gonna be free like they're free now? No.
the idea would be, we would charge people, I don't know what the going rate is for that around when you go to.
Never.
Be within some kind of a range. Part of the thought originally was when we thought they were gonna cost us 20 grand to put them in, was that we would try to have a surcharge on there, to recover some of our costs.
Yeah.
To the cost of electricity. I did find out from Jim in regards to the one, we do have a new one to put outside there that we can use with a credit card. We've had a little difficulty with our town treasurer to get that system up in place, but Jim is working with, I know they've met with Iron Bank, I think it was, to get the credit system up and running. So as soon as that happens, we'll be replacing that one out there that's free with one that charges people. So,
And I think by charging people, it'll prevent people from just parking there.
yeah, well, that's, and
And if they don't have it plugged in, we might have to put a little something on their cars.
there is,
Throw them away.
there is in all the software that I've looked at, not to take too long on this, but all the software allows you to you can set time limits as how long somebody could be there. If they don't leave in the time, the system can text somebody to say your time's up. If they don't come within a certain amount of time, you can charge them more. I mean, you can do a bunch of stuff. And it's like using a gas pump. You gotta put the card in there to get,
it
to
out.
start it.
Right.
So if they don't come back and take it, then, we can charge them more as that happens. We can decide we're not gonna set a limit, or we can say 2 hours is the most you can use it. We can decide how we wanna do that. Apparently it can also get put on a registry so that people know where they are, which will be very nice. And also, some of the software allows you to actually sign up. So if you're traveling to the town and you want to come for lunch and you need to charge your car, you can go online and, now I'm not sure we're gonna do that, but you can actually.
Yeah, we don't need that.
I can
So,
see
the software gives a lot of.
it's very
Yes, Amy.
handy.
Amy,
I was thinking that with the EV charging station discussion, that if we also build into our messaging for the town, for the Explore Washington, that we kind of hit home the idea that we are moving in that direction and that we have EV chargers, so that it becomes like just something that's known. I know we have a Tesla. Carol has a Tesla, and if you put in look for chargers, I don't know if ours would show up or how we'd get on that list. But it's
There-
just a thought that we could actually capitalize a little bit on that by using it as economic development.
Absolutely. My understanding, talking to the folks, we're looking at the one that, there is a way, once you have it up and running, to get on that list, that when you, I don't know how, through the charging station that you purchase, they'll help you, because they want to be then found.
Yeah.
So they'll help you do that too. So
Um,
that's another, I just want to go through the issues, we can go back.
Gotcha.
and discuss what we want to do there. Town buildings, Chris, you had talked about, retrofitting them to improve the energy usage. We talked about the highway department, what kind of, they can do to reduce their energy usage and use in more environmentally friendly products. I know we had discussion, I think it was 2 years ago, about the
Yeah.
type of, salt, sand we put down on the roads, and I know Kevin has made an effort. I don't think you can get anything that's totally environmental friendly, but Kevin made an effort to get stuff that is better. Every year, I'm sure there's other stuff out there, so that's another option, or fertilizing the town property, what do they do?
Mhm.
Lawn maintenance, that goes part along with that, although lawn maintenance is more with Mark handles most of that now, reducing chemicals, replacing gas powered equipment that we use. I think a big one was educating the public on steps that they can take to reduce energy in their own homes. And then the last thing that came up was connectivity, bike paths, town center, walkability, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So,
And you guys have been addressing speed limits on some roads because of that issue.
we have been, we have purchased 2 more of those electronic signs. How fast you're going. I don't know if we've got them yet, but we have the ability to move them. They're all movable, so we can move them around.
Keep trying to hit 22 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Haven't done it yet.
And then the biggest issue came up on Wickham for I'm sure most of you know. And we're looking at options. It's a problem everywhere in every town. Cars, in my opinion, are just not, it's not designed to drive 25 miles an hour anymore, but on some of our roads, you need to be going that slow for sure. And especially driving through the middle of town, without a doubt.
Middle of the town is scary. Absolutely scary. Trucks come barreling down those hills into town. They have no intention of stopping for anything. Weren't we talking about systems that photograph the license plate?
Well, and that's not sort of something the Board of Selectmen is doing, but the state has just passed a new law that allows you to do that if there is a light. So at a traffic light, I believe. I don't know if it's allowed just along along any road. There was something about that, and I'm not sure about all the rules, but
Yeah.
We have been working with our own representatives to get the state to approve the kind of thing that we've been talking about, where you can just set up on our state trooper can set up on the road
Right.
and have one of those cameras there and catch people speeding. So the state does have a new law that they passed. They are working out what the regulations are around that, and I'm not sure how much it can help us, but the state is aware of that and is trying to move that stuff forward. So,
In our town, we have managed without a traffic light,
Yeah.
and we'd love to continue that. But that's why it's so important to slow these buggers down before they get into the center of town.
well, I'm not. Sustainability is, I guess, it's sustainable to make sure people don't get run over and keep the population, but but I will tell you, Linda, that is a big issue for the Board of Selectmen, and that's what we're working on that.
Good.
And I know, just talking with Michelle, before the meeting, she's up, we're getting down to connectivity at the bottom there, but she's looking to put in a grant. And I guess you maybe tell just quickly the drawings for putting in like a median or something, would be another way, but I don't want to spend too much time on it here because it's really not our topic, but.
Yeah, when we had the public meetings around the Titus project, which is the sidewalk project. Over in that whole Titus block, we talked about traffic calming, which is a way to calm and slow the traffic down without lights. or speed bumps or more signs, because the signs don't seem to work.
Yeah.
And we do have a plan for that, but they did not put a cost estimate because it's a state road and I need to get permission from the DOT, and I've been having a challenge getting somebody out there to look at that. But I'm still gonna go forward. It also, the entire project exceeds the amount of the connectivity grant, so we're gonna just phase in, starting with the
Sure.
sidewalks. But it is really important, not just for pedestrian safety, but accessibility, because none of those sidewalks over there have ramps or are handicap accessible. So
You're
that's-
talking through the depot.
Yes.
Yeah.
right.
So this is Cardinal
Yeah,
that's doing it. So have they taken into consideration the things that were done in the depot study? Because that was all done with.
I did
traffic
share that with
calming.
them. Yep. And they looked at, because in the depot study, it talked about having parking along there to narrow the
Right.
roadway. But,
Which is what the DOT was willing to accept at that point.
there are very few, there are actually very few spots where you could actually park. It'd be like 4 or 5 car, in the sections between
No.
the T out and river, it wasn't quite enough cars to do what we wanted, so same idea, putting a median in that
I
section.
thought that was
The
a
whole
kind of
point
cool
is,
idea.
is to give people the impression that it's narrow and they
Right.
better slow down.
Right.
And there are different ways to accomplish it, some more expensive than others.
Yeah.
So we are looking at that, but that's.
Great, thank you.
Activity falls under us in terms of sustainability.
And
it
the
would-
Sustainable Connecticut has a whole section
Right.
on, it's called Complete Streets, and actually they encourage us to come up with a policy for the town, and in the DOT's connectivity grant, they're no longer gonna, after this round, the town must adopt a Complete Streets policy in order to comply.
Oh, really?
This round, you get points for having the policy.
Right.
But next round you have to have it, so that's something that I will definitely look at, because I think it'd be a shame not to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the items that we discussed at our last meeting, so, I'll throw it out there, folks, I know, well, let me just say, from my perspective, the issue of composting up at the transfer station is something I've had a talk already with our intern, and a couple of emails with there's an intern from Sustainable CT about looking for funding to do the composting initiative up at the transfer station. The other idea, and of course, as we've said a million times before, this is all contingent on us being able to purchase the property up there. But the other issue was putting a solar array on the landfill up there is another thing that we've had that discussion with before, and I'd like to continue to move that forward. Those two things personally. So
BJ, I was meeting with some people from Cornwall about affordable housing, but somehow we got just talking about other initiatives, and they went through this process for the town composting, and apparently it's a challenge. I think I don't know if
Yeah.
DEP has to get involved,
Yeah.
but they came and took the temperature or something, or they weren't turning their leaves right, or
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll
You're
go
not
back to
turning
my
your
notes.
leaves.
Let me know.
I'll look them up though. One of the women is the current chair of their zoning board, so I'll be able to, I'll find her contact
Great.
info. And she probably could just share some,
yeah, well,
their experience with trying to set one up.
and I know Richfield set it up, and I've been trying to get it together to call them and take a tour down there as well, because I know they've set it up, and they used some grant funding they got, so that was another place I wanted to take a look at.
I have one thought to share, if I may, on the composting, and I'm interested in that as well as helping educate the public. But there's a lot of Japanese knotweed up there. And I think we could be opening ourselves up to needing to consider the location, maybe bring an expert in to show us where we could possibly create those troughs and those alleys, where you're turning over your compost, because gosh, I would be so upset if I went to get what I thought was going to be safe and then got those tubers into my yard or something. So, and I know that certain temperatures kill that, but I just don't know enough about it. But every time I go in there, I think, oh, there it is, the Japanese knotweed. But anyway, if you want to, I mean, I know some experts just kind of through, but they're not, you know, municipal levels or anything who do composting. But if you want to collaborate or take a minute
Right.
to talk about it or collaborate, I'm happy to. And I do have an interest. I don't know if Monique is interested in joining me on it, but I really did enjoy writing the co-authoring that piece that we did, educating the public on different ways to save energy and our resources. So I would be interested in doing that and helping on that level, and would love it if Monique was also interested.
All right, great. Thank you both.
There'll be the next newsletter goes out September 1st. I haven't sent a reminder yet, but the due date, for the next article will be in August. Oh.
I can't believe it's almost August, you guys. Yeah.
Say that.
And on the public record, I'm sorry I got here late. I was just so spoiled by Dennis sending it out. I was expecting it through email. When you said posted, I didn't think actually posted, but of course it's there, and I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay. And we've been working to replace, Dennis does minutes for a couple of different committees, so we've been working to replace Dennis, and we do have somebody to do it, but Mandy's been doing it for a couple other groups, but I didn't realize she was doing it by listening to the tape afterwards. that she-
Oh, gotcha. Well, we're
Yeah.
happy to have her helping. Yeah, for sure.
Posting the meeting, so I'll talk to them about making sure it gets out to everybody after we post it, so. Anyway, other things on this list, anybody have it? I will say for things like, purchasing stuff, like looking to replace gas powered equipment, we've been talking about, we're gonna buy 2 hybrid vehicles for the building department and the fire marshal. As part of budgeting, that's something that I would be able to have an impact on, but it would be helpful. You know, we do have a bunch of like gas powered equipment. I think talking about Amy about educating the public in purchasing those kind of, not purchasing that type of equipment or replacing your equipment
With that,
would be something the town should be able to do, as well as getting,
set
so.
the example.
I can't say right now, I don't know, because that's something somebody would have to spend some time doing is, I don't know how many weed whackers we have that the town owns. I don't know how many, what other equipment that we own that would be, as we, and we do replace that stuff some of them every year, because, we do a lot of work. So I don't know what it is we actually even have. So somebody would have to do some research to determine what is it that we have and what's reasonably, what could we reasonably replace as we go forward. So if anybody has an interest in doing that research, let me know. Part of it is asking Kevin, what do we got? Or I'm asking Mark.
Yeah,
It's not
right,
like
right,
it's
I suppose I could.
Regardless,
do
even
that
if you
after.
don't inventory what you have, if you just set up a policy of whatever you need to replace, consider electric first.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever kind of equipment, gas powered.
Electric works great.
Yeah.
But-
I have all electric.
Yeah, to talk about that gas powered.
They have blowers, weed whackers, mowers now.
Time for the leaf blowing.
Right. Linda?
Could we invite the supply to have a demonstration on a Saturday on the front lawn? When there's some long grass and people, when they're at the farmer's market, they could then go over and look at electrical, powered devices. I mean, they wouldn't normally be selling things on the lawn, and they wouldn't necessarily be selling them, but it would be an opportunity for you to pick up one of these blowers and see how much gas it has, power, and to maybe push a mower and see what it's like, and to experience the new level of environmental friendly devices, But it's a freebie for them. I mean, if they don't take us up on it, they're fools. But
I think
Yeah.
that would fit really well with either like Earth Day or the Garden Palooza Day where
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah,
amazing-
but we've lost that,
I know, but like for next year, I'm trying to think of what, because we are creating an event, like to have an event where you already got a calendar off.
Okay. I thought they could run the event. They have events where they used to, where they would cook hamburgers on the fancy
Right.
grill. So, I don't know, it was a thought. They
Well-
would do all the work. We wouldn't do any work. They would do all the work.
Somebody needs to, if Linda, one of the things I'm trying not to do is do all this, so if you're interested, I do think that's a good idea. But somebody has to go and contact them and is somebody, talk to them about that opportunity and see if they'd be willing to do that, so,
I'll help Linda do that.
all right.
If you guys,
With education,
Just volunteered you.
if you guys talk to the supply, Carol and Linda, and if they're amenable to that, I'm
Yeah.
happy to make a flyer to get the selectmen's email to promote it, so that people are aware.
We can just put it in the weekly blast from the selectman's office, a couple of weeks in advance and the week of, and have a sign at the farmer's market. I mean, right, the farmer's market I don't know how many people it brings in, but there might be more people who are interested in coming. And in a perfect world, the lawn would be a little longer that day, so you could mow it. You want to see how these things work.
well, I think, rather than creating a day, the farmer's market's a perfect setting, because it
Yeah.
just does bring,
There,
so that's great, all right.
And they have.
okay, Carol.
Good idea.
It'll be great.
And let us know, and then we'll follow up. Michelle is already doing connectivity stuff
And I'm
with
gonna,
her grant.
work more on that,
All
because
right.
we're gonna need a policy in place for the future.
Great. I'm interested in how the bike paths work, because unless I get a motor on my bike, man, I'm not.
I know, yeah, we've talked, yeah.
I went for a bike ride the other day, but it's just, you're either going up, it seems to me I'm going uphill both ways. I don't know what happened.
That's why you need an e-bike.
Well, that's a great,
I'll
I
tell you.
think I'm gonna have to move to that.
The
pretty soon.
e-bikes are the best.
Try it
I,
for
I,
free.
I think I'm gonna have
Come
to.
to Brandon. I've got a couple.
Chris, you had your.
Ride it.
So, a couple things that didn't make it on the list, but I'm willing to take on.
Okay,
First is, and I think this would be something that would be helpful when, I think, doesn't the planning commission intend to focus on getting funding for the update of the resource inventory report that would be done by the Conservation Commission?
I thought that was
I
mentioned.
think that was
Yeah.
something that Wayne's talked about, Carol.
I think so.
Yeah,
And so one of the things that I'd like to pursue is getting a budget together with an engineer and different people to put together a composite map of the town of satellite images that show all the stone walls. That would help us sort of see these lands that historically were farmland. It's actually amazing how savvy those people were in terms of stopping at the edge of wetlands and forest lands, and farmers didn't want to, muck around in wetlands, okay? So I'm willing to take that on.
all right,
okay?
great.
Second thing is, we've got Habitat's building some houses, and I've been looking at them with the building inspector, and when you look at the energy standard of those buildings versus what Habitat is building in Hartford, this is a 3-bedroom,
Yeah, I saw that.
about 1,280 square foot house on Roosevelt Street in Hartford, and the annual heating, cooling, and electric bill is $150.
A year.
Okay, it's super tight envelope.
Yep.
Plus some solar panels,
And
okay?
healthy, right?
And also, like you introduced, because it's so tight, what's called an ERV,
Right,
which does for residential buildings, what you are required by law to do for a school or a commercial
Right.
building, right?
bring some air. Yeah.
And so it makes what the American Lung Association calls healthy home, okay? Okay?
Yeah.
And so the thing is that the cost has come way down on a cost per square foot basis. there are all sorts of ways of reducing costs. I mean, do you need 2,000 square feet? Maybe you can get by with 1,300 square feet, things like this, right? There are ways to control costs, so this could be applied and adopted. We can't,
What are you looking to do though?
what
Develop?
I'm looking to do is to okay, so I have to talk to Peter Bowman, but the state of Connecticut was at one point looking at what they would call a stretch energy code that would allow a town to adopt an energy standard for all construction that was consistent with what they see being adopted in 2024, which is basically a passive house standard. And there are developers around the state that are already saying, you know, this is the best investment.
Is this, that's I'd be very interested. Is it for new home construction or renovated, both, or?
So it's, I mean, this is new
I know this
construction.
is no, but I know more of what happens here is renovation than.
That is right, and
Yeah.
that's what, and some of it is expensive, but Eversource has been really focused
But
on
it
what they
can't be
call
for-
the deep retrofits.
So it can't be on retrofit?
Yes.
Okay,
And,
I think that kind of dovetails with what planning is gonna put in the P O C D too.
I hope so, yeah, I think so, Carol. And so,
so the goal would be, Chris, just so I can understand, is that the town would eventually adopt energy standards for new and renovated homes.
right,
And we could educate people who have homes that already exist of what they can do to bring their home up into a,
It's it's an eye opener because when you think of modular, you know, most people think of modular homes and they think of, you know, something ugly and no good. And it's really gone way, I mean, he's educated me on this, that it's really gone way beyond that. I mean,
Right.
these homes are beautiful now
Right.
and
and they can be
energy
modern or
standards.
they can be traditional.
Right.
It
Yeah.
really is
So
just
they can look like a regular
construction
house.
standard.
so that's great, all right.
So also, well, you know, there's a house being built right now that's 32,000 square feet. And,
Every time you
what
say
is
that, I'm
the-
like, are you sure?
Oh, my God.
gotta see that.
I was hearing 37,000 square feet. He said, no, I checked it, it's 32,000.
Oh, well, now I feel better.
But it's only 2 bedrooms. However, the one up on Upper Churchill is a little more modest. I think it's only 7,000 square feet, but it's 11 bedrooms, right? So what is the, carbon,
Right, right, sure.
footprint of that building? So going back to our days in college with Buckminster Fuller, he used to talk about energy slaves and how we all use this huge, amount of energy to support a lifestyle.
Oh, and let me just, one thing, when Chris mentioned about a budget, getting a budget together. One of the things, anybody who's doing any of this stuff should think about, and we'll talk about it come November, December, is putting money in our budget for next year as we continue to do this. So whether it's putting money in the budget, even if it's in the capital budget for a couple of years to put those medians in the road once we get DOT, or it's getting, you mentioned about getting a budget together to do the mapping of stone walls. Obviously, that's a budget, but anything else, if we're gonna do the composting system, obviously, that's something we'd have to budget for. So if you're doing something that requires funding, think about it in terms of stuff together so we have it available come January when we develop the budget for the following year. So
Okay.
just wanted to throw that out, since that reminded.
And the last thing is you've got this climate leader designation worksheet, and I'm not saying that we're going for points or whatever. What I'm saying is that we should basically understand that more clearly, because I turned 71.
Yeah.
We're right in the same ballpark, Jay,
Yeah,
and I've been told to
Just
take
baby.
baby
I'm older
steps
than you.
my
Just
whole
baby.
life. Okay, okay, just be patient, Chris. Well,
Yeah.
I'm 71. I'm running out of patience. And if you look at
can I
What's-
see that for a second?
this is from Sustainable.
Yeah,
City.
yeah.
So if you look at what the weather has been, people finally saying, I guess it's,
Wow.
and this may be, we may have passed, what's the right term, Monique, when things just basically start spinning out of control. Because it's a specific
Malcolm Gladwell's term, tipping point.
The
Exactly.
tipping point.
Yeah.
And so with the temperature exceeding 100 whatever degrees in parts of the country for many days, I mean, you know, this stuff.
I think this is great, and I would love to have take a look at, as part of our, we talked about town buildings, you know, what can we do in this list
Well,
to retrofit to
As
at
things
least
come up.
to start there for us.
So last night at the Housing Commission, they were talking about developing a thermostat basically for affordable housing. So this is what a HERS rating is, okay? And the HERS rating is about, you know, how much energy you're consuming on your buildings. It's also about how much carbon you're emitting, okay? And it's about your carbon footprint. So I think somehow, you know, maybe there's a way that we could establish what the overall carbon footprint of the town right now is, okay? That's a lot of work, but you've got all the utility companies. You know, there's ways to do it. So at least we have an understanding, look, we're at 10% and we need to get to 100% reduction. How do we narrow the gap? What, you know, are the steps that we're taking effective in getting, you know, the baby steps getting us there?
Darman,
And how
did you,
soon?
did you see that workshop, that webinar that I forwarded to you and Jeff?
I just did, yes, today,
Okay,
yeah.
cause I think it's a CCM, it's the Conference of Municipalities is offering a workshop. It's about setting sustainable goals and how to work with the energy companies to measure your output. I don't know if it's for the whole town or for
Right.
just the town buildings,
Right,
but
You gotta
it's
start
about
some
data
ways.
collection,
Yeah.
so
Well-
it's like, so.
well, I'm interested to know, because we do collect data already on all of the, you know, electricity, oil, gas we use. We do that now, you know, through a government, you know, a
For the
sponsor.
municipal buildings.
Yeah, for all the municipal buildings. So we have that data, and in that data, when we're collecting it, I know you know, how many kilowatts we're burning with electrical and all that comes into that data. I don't know what else you need to, what other data there is, but
Well,
but
so
it'd be
the
interesting.
same
to-
thing could be applied to every residence.
Right.
And they're doing a thing with the state where if you put in like a generator, or if you have a battery charger that's tied in with solar panels, then you can become part of the grid. You can say, okay, I'll commit not to be using these systems during the day. So Eversource can draw upon them or count on them for other, you know, or I won't do my clothing or
Right.
whatever.
Well,
So
that's
they're thinking,
the idea why we're putting in the, yeah.
they're thinking statewide with all the stakeholders.
So I'd love to talk with you about what do we do? To me, we have control of the town bill.
Right.
So we start with that and then through educating the public and show them what else they could do on their own, but I would love to talk about what would we have to gather, what data would we have to gather on the town side to say, here's where we rate on that, on a scale of 1 to whatever it is.
Right.
For energy usage, energy efficiency, that kind of thing.
And I'm pretty sure that Eversource would be an active.
Yeah, well, I mean, already,
player in that.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think they can reveal the information without people giving permission to,
oh, you mean for the town and
for the
everybody?
individual.
Totals.
But ultimately, what you would like to have is like what they do at a lot of colleges and universities now, where you walk into a dormitory or you walk into a department building and they've got a dashboard. And it just, you walk in and see what you're using, and people do things like turn off lights, or, you know, they start thinking about how the building is operating, and the expression is building is, you know, pedagogic, whatever. So, anyway, building is,
Say it, and I know I can't spell it. I know what it means.
okay, so
Well,
that's it. Thanks, Jay.
All right, all right, anything else that on this list or that we didn't talk about that that people feel we should be working forward on?
Yeah.
That's enough, I mean, I agree, but,
Ready to do right there.
so I do agree, I just, you know, I think Chris brought up some great stuff, I like the idea of looking at talked about it last time, collecting data on what we're doing at the transfer station, and I think collecting data on how we're using energy in the town buildings is something that we can do, that we're doing now. We just need to put it in a format that makes sense, and how does that help us then reduce that footprint down the road? So I think there's stuff there to do, and the whole thing we talked about last time with the
So that
transfer
even
station was to let people know, here's what's happening. And so I talked to Liz, and we've been talking about collecting that data and putting that together, so I think that'd be great.
Yeah,
So
celebrate
we'll
the
do that.
successes and work on the challenges, yeah,
So great.
awesome.
Any other business to come before the committee? Public comment, anybody?
I move we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right, let's do it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
guys.
you.
6 o'clock.
Bye-bye.
Can I keep this, Chris? You have it?
Absolutely.